This Blue Ammonite Designs tutorial on creating a simple tassel border. This border is perfect when you're using a separate colour for every row, and instead of weaving your ends back into the fabric, which is extremely tedious and time consuming, we're going to leave a slightly longer tail and then make a lovely tassel border instead. So as you can see, those ones are reasonably long. This is on the veg patch blanket, but I've also got here the woodland blanket, and as you can see, I just made my tassels slightly shorter because I just thought they look quite cute that way. So you can really make them absolutely any length you like. You've just got to remember to leave a tail at the beginning and end of each row. Okay, so as you can see, I've now got my finish blanket, my extremely small finish blanket. Yours, of course, will be a lot larger, but I'm going to show you now how to do the first stage of the tassels. So what you want to do is, working along one side of your blanket, you get 6 strands of yarn. I mean, I find 6 works well. You might decide you want slightly plumper or slightly slimmer tassels. Actually, I'm going to turn it around this way because I'm right-handed. Then, quite simply, you do an ordinary knot. I'm sorry, I don't know the correct name for that kind of knot, but what we would call a standard knot, and just gently pull it taut, grouping the tassel together, and then we're just going to work our way up. So I've got 4, 6 here, twist round, and it helps if you can put your finger in and just grab them all, otherwise you'll get 1 or 2 getting left behind. And if you see that some are a bit looser, just give them a tug and gently pull it all together, centering them up in the middle of the 6 rows, the 6 strands you're using. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's about. This isn't an exact science. If you end up with slightly skinnier ones at the end, it's really easy just to add a strand or 2 of yarn to bulk them up a bit. And try and get them reasonably tight to the edge of your blanket. And this is going to be my final one here. As you can see, some of my ends of yarn are much longer than others, but that doesn't matter because we're just going to trim them up. We'll pick a length and trim them up. Now, as you can see, doing this leaves your tassels looking a bit sparse, so in the next part I'll show you how to fill those in. Right. We're going to be filling in with more yarn between these tassels. What you need is an object about the same length or slightly larger than the ends that you've got there already. I'm going to be using this book. Now, a book is quite handy because, as you can see, we can open the pages and use that to secure the ends, and it helps us with cutting. So, moving that sample out of the way, you hold all your coloured strands of yarn together. You can open up, pop them in the middle of the book, and that will just hold them tight. Now, I'm only going to do a couple of revolutions like this because I really don't need that many strands to fill in. Now, let me go for 3 times round. Then at the same end as you secured your ends, just cut. Try not to cut your book. Cut right through every strand And what you will have is lots of strands of yarn, roughly the right length. Right, what you want to do is separate your yarn strands into groups of 3. Then taking your blanket, get your crochet hook and insert it in the midpoint between these 2 knots, and holding your group of 3 so the ends are roughly all together, just pull it through, and then you can just pull it sometimes it's easier just to reach through and do that bit with your fingers, and you get a tassel which is virtually indistinguishable. This blanket is completely reversible, so you'll see one side of the knot like that and one side like that, and then you get your next group of 3 and you just work your way up the blanket, making your fake tassels. Pull it through and tighten. I'll just do this last one and I'll have done all this side of the blanket, my miniature blanket. And there we go. Right, so I've done my tassels on both sides of my blanket, and now comes for the fun bit, which is trimming. You're going to want to do this on a flat surface, and what you need to do is make sure that your knots are nice and tight to your work. Even them all up and make sure all your strands are lying fairly flat at an exact right angle to the fabric, or aligned to the fabric. I suppose it's in rows. And you work in sections, tidy everything up, and then when you're ready to cut, you go. Now find something which is about the width of where you want your finished tassel to end. If you've got the odd short strand but you want your tassels to be a bit longer, don't worry, you're really not going to notice. So I could cut them off there and there'd be some shorter bits, but I can guarantee they won't really bother you. So all I'm going to do simply, we could use a bit of card with a harder edge, but this, this isn't rocket science, we don't need that much skill. And get your scissors and you simply work your way up. I could have used a sharper pair of scissors. Now I'm simply going to improvise a bit here. As you can see, that's pretty good. Just one or two. Need trimming. And that's what you do all the way up your blanket, and you'll have gorgeous tassels and absolutely no ends to sew in. So that's always a bonus.